The Diaper Incident is the third episode of the second season of The Middle. This is directed by Wendey Stanzler, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And I think it's a really great episode. There's a lot going on and everything is handled really well. I'll talk about each of the main parts of the narrative in turn, but I'll talk about the opening scene first of all, as it establishes all of the main elements. It starts off with Frankie trying to convince Mike to get a physical. Axel and Sean are then in the house and they have a class project, and we find out that Sue actually has a crush on Sean. And Brick's part of the story is also introduced here, as he's offered some candy and he says he would like some, but he's not allowed to break the law, or he doesn't want to break the law. And we get the suspense for about 10 seconds as we're left to wonder why it would be against the law. And we get a flashback to Frankie telling Brick that the president outlawed candy for kids under the age of 10. And we have this this brilliant moment from Brick where Sue says to Frankie, "Mom, you said you'd drive me to babysitting." And Brick, off screen, all we can hear is him saying, "She says a lot of things," which I absolutely loved. So the first scene there, rather, establishes all of the main parts of the narrative, which I thought was very, very well done. So we have part of it focusing on Frankie, with Brick's story kind of intertwined there, and then the story with Sue. And I'll talk about Sue first of all. Carly comes over and Sue tells her that she thinks Sean likes her. That's because he gave her a lift to babysitting and took a different way and it was slightly longer, and they decide that Sue can write him a love letter. Well, a poem more than a letter. And just as she's about to give it to him and get everything prepared, Brad comes over. Brad being Sue's ex-boyfriend, he actually has just come by on his way to tap class. We have a great moment when Mike asks why he's tap dancing on his porch, which I thought was rather entertaining. And he's actually just come by to get the colander that he lent Sue. And of course, Sue is in a panic because her ex-boyfriend and her future love are going to be in the same room, and she worries that they're going to fight for her. And it's a stressful time for Sue. And she ultimately ends up telling Sean that she can't go with him, and she gives him this big speech. And Sean is just cool. He's not really thinking too much into it. Axel made a face. And when Axel and Sean are in the car, Axel realises what Sue was going on about, because Sean finds the letter, the poem that Sue was going to give him, and he begins to read it out, and it was so sweet. I really admired Axel in this moment, because he said, it was his poem, it was something he was writing. And Sean asks him, "You dot your I's with hearts?" To which Axel responds, "Those are butts." Honestly, I think it's brilliant. And I had a lot of respect for Axel in that moment. I thought that was a really great thing for him to do. Also, their science project actually sounded pretty good. They would have needed to have done a test run first of all. Basically, they're playing, I think they said 36 hours of video games, and then they're going to watch a documentary and see how much they remember. Seems pretty fair, but they seem to have missed out the bit where they need to do a test run, watching a documentary to see how much they remember without having just played video games, and then do the experiment with the video games. So it's probably not that helpful at all, but I still thought it was a pretty fun idea. Definitely liked that part of the episode. The other part focuses on Frankie. And this initially started out when she told Mike to go for a physical. Sue then calls her from babysitting and says that she needs diapers because they don't have any. So Frankie goes to the store and she asks the worker there to show her where the diapers are. And he took her to the adult diapers. And obviously Frankie is mortified that he would think that she's at an age where she would need diapers. Obviously, it's not necessarily an age thing. Plenty of young people need to wear them. But she doesn't like the idea that he just looked at her, thought she was old, and thought she was incontinent. So she's not feeling great about that. And then she goes home, bends over to fix the television, and she throws her back out just as Mike comes in from his physical, saying he has perfect health. When Frankie is lying down on the floor, Mike realises it's their anniversary, offers to take her out. Ordinarily, she would absolutely, well, most times she would jump at this, not always, but on this occasion, she doesn't want to because she's in a lot of pain. And she ends up having a bath, which is fair enough. That should definitely help soothe things a little bit, but she can't bend over to add more hot water, so she asks Brick to do it. Brick, who had been spending the episode testing out things Frankie had lied about, such as pulling a face and his face not sticking, going out with wet hair, swallowing a seed, walking home with a stranger. It got a little bit risky. And now Frankie is asking him to turn on the hot tap, and he does. And he can't turn it off again, and she's basically being boiled alive while being unable to get out of the bath because of her back. I laugh, but in reality that would be genuinely terrifying if you were stuck in the bath and the hot water was running. I can't even imagine what would happen. And Frankie tells him that lies are bad, but sometimes it's okay to lie to spare somebody's feelings. And I have to give him some credit. Just as Axel came to Sue's rescue when Sean found the note, Brick has come to Frankie's rescue when Mike comes in and asks why there's water everywhere, and Brick instantly launches into this story about a spider, and it seems like they got away with it. And as he leaves the door, Frankie reaches to close the door behind him quickly because, of course, Brick whispered, "I'm lying." And it was just beautifully shot. The execution of that, I thought, was very, very well done. And this part of the narrative just ended so beautifully. Frankie eventually confessed everything to Mike about the diapers and her back, and she's kind of wrapped in the shower curtain, and he just sort of scoops her up and puts her on the bed. And then to make her feel better, he told her that he actually has very high cholesterol. Does he have high cholesterol, or is he just saying it to make her feel better? I actually don't know. I don't think it matters very much. But either way, he knew the right thing to say in the moment, whether it was a lie to save her feelings or otherwise. And it's a really sweet part of the narrative. It's a solid episode. There's a lot going on. Pretty much everybody's involved in this, which is not always the case. Usually there's at least one character who's not necessarily in it very much. They're either milling around in the background or they're just in it occasionally. But actually everybody had a really great role to play here, and I thought that it was a really solid episode. Do I have any personal highlights? The spider story and just how smoothly Brick fell into that, and then his tell at the end of it I liked. Absolutely loved Axel saving Sue, saving her from embarrassment and referring to the hearts as butts, which it gave me a strange memory when I was at school, so early noughties. Some girls would draw hearts like butts, like the bottom of it would be very flat. And that might not make a lot of sense if you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you do remember, this was definitely a trend in the early noughties. If you remember that, let me know. It's something I haven't thought about in a very long time. Another fact, I couldn't draw hearts for most of my childhood and teenage years. Absolutely terrible at it. I don't know why. Brought back some strange memories this episode. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. Solid parts to the narrative. Definitely a really great episode of The Middle.